Zambia's power utility, Zesco, has announced crippling 12-hour electricity rolling blackouts until further notice. Power rationing officially started on Tuesday, with some areas being hit by up to 8 hours of power cuts. The extended 12-hour blackouts started on Wednesday. A statement from Zesco says that the measure is needed because of a lack of water in the Kariba Dam, which is used for hydropower. Zambia and neighbouring Zimbabwe, which has also been experiencing long blackouts, share the Kariba Dam for hydroelectricity generation. Well, for a little bit more on this, we're now joined by Zambian economist Yusuf Dodia. Yusuf, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Happy New Year, although a difficult one already, it looks like.
Well, happy New Year to you too, Peter, and your team at SABC. Yes, when we thought that things were going to go on the up, we see this challenge of electricity deficit, which is obviously going to have a huge impact on the economy.
So what happened? We had a conversation not so long ago where there was excess electricity and there was even the possibility of exporting some of that energy. How have things turned around so badly so quickly?
Well, firstly, as Zambezi River Authority announced, these are the regulators for the water on Lake Kariba, which hosts two power stations, the Kariba South Bank Power Station, which belongs to Zimbabwe, and the Kariba North Bank Power Station, which belongs to Zambia. Now, they made an announcement about a month ago that Zimbabwe had used up their quota of water to drive their turbines to generate electricity, and therefore there was a looming shortage of water that was going to necessitate the control of flow to avoid a disaster with both power stations. So as Zambians, we thought, well, okay, that problem is for Zimbabwe, but very soon after that announcement, a month later, our Ministry of Energy and our local national electricity supply company announced that they would be load shedding of 6 hours due to the low levels of Lake Kariba, and therefore they had to shut down some of the turbines to reduce the generating capacity from 1,080 megawatts to only 360. So we were losing 900 megawatts, which is about 40% of the amount of power that the economy needs. So that was a huge drop. And then, of course, we were told that it was a 6-hour load shedding exercise that would take place. It turns out to be 12 hours. And so obviously, this is having a huge impact on national development, on security, on profitability of companies.
Is it just water levels, or are there other issues at play, perhaps just poor management?
Well, the only challenge that would really offer an alternate argument is if power is being diverted to other economies that would pay for it, given that Zambia is going through the challenges of huge external debts. So most of our power is generated by hydroelectric power stations. The philosophy of hydroelectric power is use it or lose it. So clearly, when the electricity is being generated and our industry is asleep, which I would suggest would be probably from midnight till 8 o'clock in the morning, it would make sense to export that electricity to other countries that need it because we're not using it. But clearly, with the reduction in power generation by 900 megawatts, what we are actually experiencing now is electricity shortages throughout the day. And this has led to these load shedding exercises that are going on, which are seriously disrupting economic development in the country and productivity.
Yusuf, Zambia has been independent since 1964. It has had that many decades to provide electricity for its citizens and plan for the future. It sounds as if this hasn't been done. You know your population is growing over time, and the job of government is to build capacity over time. Has that happened? What has caused it not to happen quickly enough?
Well, my assessment of the situation is that with the development challenges that a country like Zambia has, we were just generating enough power to meet our immediate needs. Clearly, over the last 58 years of independence, we've had an opportunity to build at least 6 or 7 power stations, large ones, that would enable us to produce, at this point in time, around 8,000 megawatts, which is 8 gigawatts. And our demand in the economy is only about 2 gigawatts. So we would be exporting 6 gigawatts. But the problem is that we've been, really struggling with the issues of education, developing the education sector, developing the health sector, trying to make sure that agriculture takes off. And so these other demands have really shifted the resources that we have in an economy to these other areas, and therefore we've not really invested in developing power. And having said that, if you look at the last 10 or 12 years, we've run up a credit, an international foreign credit, up to about 16 or 17 billion dollars. So where we are now, we're in a situation where we're really suffering with the debt burden, and at the same time looking to see how we can generate more electricity when we really don't have the resources to build new power stations. There's been a plan to build a power station between Zambia and Zimbabwe on the Zambezi River, a place called, it's the gorges, Batoka Gorge, and at Batoka Gorge, the power station that's planned for it is about 2,400 megawatts, which would be enough to cater for Zambia and Zimbabwe's needs, at least for the next 4 or 5 years. But this is not going to happen because we just don't have the resources. We've kind of run out of credit, and at the moment we're just struggling to get from year to year and find ways in which to service our foreign debts.
So, I mean, the economy needs electricity to grow. If you don't grow the economy, you can't do the development. It almost seems as if you're running into a cul-de-sac.
Oh, absolutely. And this is why it's been so important, even with an IMF intervention, where the IMF signed an agreement with the Zambian government, a staff-level agreement, to provide some kind of support service. The real goal is really just to continue to build confidence in Zambia so that other countries out there can work with Zambia and support Zambia in its development endeavors. Now, in this particular arrangement, we ought to be going back to the big lenders, China, India, and talk to them about building power stations. Because the more support we get to build economic infrastructure, the easier it will be for us to raise the resources to service our debts. So it's a bit of a catch-22 situation, but I think it's a situation which we can manage to develop a strategy that would allow us to get resources to build the energy sector in Zambia, and at the same time be able to grow the capacity through tax collection, through bigger businesses, to be able to service our debt. And I say this in a situation where I recognize that as a copper producing nation, the third largest producer in the world, we still do not benefit from the copper that is being exported out of this country, which in my opinion is around $40 million a day. So we've got to be able to deal with our natural resources exports and rationalize that. And we've got to be able at the same time to look at how we can build our energy sector. Electricity is one of them, but the other one is the fuel sector. We're importing refined fuels at the moment when we actually have a oil refinery that has been shut down for the last 6 to 8 months. So we need to go back to that drawing board and rethink that strategy where we can begin to make energy available to the Zambian economy at an affordable rate and in a very cost-effective manner. And this is something that I think that the government of the day is challenged with going into 2023.
Yusuf, we're going to leave it there, and you've joined the nations of load shedding on a regular basis, and let's see what happens in the coming days as you've joined our band of merry parties and countries dealing with load shedding.
Well, I was crossing my fingers that the lights wouldn't go off right now.
Wow.
Because in the middle of this interview, we could have had a blackout. So, you know, we've managed to get through it.
Thank you so much. We'll be chatting during the year. Okay, that's Zambian economist there, Yusuf Dodia, speaking to us about Zambia, which is another country now that's experiencing severe load shedding, 12 hours at times since Tuesday this week. This, of course, now means Zambia, Zimbabwe and South Africa all in the same boat at the moment.